Welcome to the Joyosity Podcast. If you are joining us for the first time or you are a seasoned leader who hangs out here, we are so glad that you are here today. I am Jen Whitmer. I am your host. And what we do here at the Joyosity Podcast is we base our work on these three bedrock ideas. One is that true leadership requires far more than surface level strategies. It requires a profound commitment to everything that makes us human. And number two, we use genuine curiosity in order to create positive culture and return joy to work with all of the complex people that we work with, because complex people is all you got. And number three, joy is the heartbeat of a healthy leader and a healthy organization. So we're putting joy and fun at the center. And each week we have these conversations with experts and leaders sharing more than just a couple tips to help you lead well, but really building a movement with you based on hard-won wisdom, real life experience, and leading research. So I'm Jen Whitmer, like I said, a speaker, consultant, all-around joy bringer, guiding us along the way so we can take these ideas from all of these amazing guests and put them into your everyday walking around life in the dynamic, imperfect world that we all live in. I want these insights to help you transform from just okay to I am leading and living my life. And so I want you to get yourself ready, get your multiple beverages, turn your speakers on, because we are going to have part two with Jade Simmons. If you didn't get to listen to part one, you might want to pause and go back. She is like dropping all of the goodness along the way. She is an international keynote speaker, concert pianist. She brings everything from Rachmaninoff to rap music to the stage. She brings wisdom that is unbelievable into her work as an author. And I like I said, as a keynote speaker, it's a Jade Simmons experience is something beyond just listening to a talk. And so I am so excited to bring Jade back for the second half of our conversation around purpose and the uniqueness of you. So thank you, Jade, for coming back.
Thanks for having me back.
Yes, of course. So when we stopped last week, we talked about I'm going to let you say it because I think it's so powerful, about purpose being different than passion, but really your definition of purpose, I think, is incredibly powerful. So tell us where we're starting.
Yes. So your purpose is not the thing you do. I know that hurts a little bit for a long time. Your purpose is the thing that happens in others when you do what you do. I do want to make a disclaimer. Depending on what's happening in society, Jen, or what, people are being inundated with, they hear things differently. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people hear that statement to mean, and I've gotten this from people who they call themselves recovering codependents, and they go, oh, that definition sort of freaks me out a bit. It makes me feel like I don't have purpose unless it's attached to people, or that my worth. And if anybody has ever heard me or worked with me, you know that is not where I am coming from. So I just want to say that definition, funny enough, is not meant to tie you to people. It's actually designed to free you of people. What I mean by that is I now know that I know what I am called to do on this earth. I know the effect that I am uniquely designed to have. I understand the type of people that I'm called to. I believe in what I've uncovered to be purpose so deeply that I now care too much about people to care about what they think what I'm doing. And it's like a mandate. You get purpose figured out. I can't show up small because there are people in that room I'm assigned to that if I come in there in any other form than fully myself, right? We want to get dire here. I mean, it's not overly dramatic to say there are people who are needing you to show up fully as you so they can make some of the most powerful decisions they've ever made in their life.
Yeah.
So they can have confirmation they've been praying for. So they can see themselves and their possibilities. And so when we come in small or come in, you will hear me, or in my book, Purpose, the Remix, I talk about being all purpose or multi-purpose or cross purpose, which those aren't good things. If we're tied up being that and not really fully operating in the fullness of our unique purpose, it costs. It costs us, and it could potentially cost others as well.
Absolutely. And I know a lot of you are like, yeah, but you two, you're both speakers, you're doing this creative industry. I just want to walk a little train for us. So you're sitting at your desk and you've got your leaders above you in the C-suite, you've got the people below you on your team, and you are not living fully in your purpose because you're spending all this time trying to figure out, well, how do I please the people above me? How do I make the people below me do what they're supposed to do? And that creates a lot of miscommunication because you're never going to figure it out without a clear purpose. And then miscommunication leads to about 70% of corporate errors and about 86% of why we have workplace anxiety. So when people start having all of this workplace anxiety, other research, as I've been working on the book, these are terrifying statistics, that workplace anxiety that often comes from this miscommunication starts to impact our home lives. So people are bringing it home.
Right.
And then we are spending all of this time and energy of the impacts of people not living in their purpose, lacking joy, lacking clear integrity and authenticity. And the one that hits me every time is that it costs us about $190 billion a year dealing with the impacts of work-related stress and anxiety, and about 120,000 deaths a year.
Wow.
So if we want to get dire, because you sitting in your middle, like not just you, not the creative people, you who are running the audit, you who are making that advertising campaign come out for that other product, like the work that you do, if you understand your purpose, you can then communicate more clearly. You start to live fully as yourself and you will have more joy. That you are free from what, is this what you want? And this is what you want? Like it's so important. It's so important.
Listen, I'm just letting a lot of that sink in, even as someone who has to lead a team. As you were speaking, it made me kind of reflect on past seasons. And, we throw even that word miscommunication, we throw around so lightly, but to really kind of dig in to what that means, I'm a minister as well. And so when I speak about these things, it actually is from a pretty dire place of life and death, eternal things. Can we stay focused on the things that are really going to matter beyond the paycheck, beyond the lifetime of the job?
Yeah.
And when you begin to see that we are all designed to be people of great consequence.
Yeah.
There is a seriousness that begins to settle in. And it's not a burden. It is a responsibility, but it is the greatest privilege in the world to know. And I love that you said, listen, whether you're on spreadsheets or ledgers or whatever it is that you do, it's all creative, actually. We're all literally making something out of nothing. We're really behaving pretty divinely because we're calling things that were not as though they were, right? I mean, when you think about it, that's really what's going on. And, one of the things I want people to do, I wish I discovered it earlier than most of my artist friends. But I would pay money to have known it maybe 10 years earlier. And in the artist world, in the artist world, we put a lot of weight on being discovered. We want agents to find us. Almost every world I'm a part of, you're waiting on someone to discover you and give you a big break and sign you. And it was early in my career that I kind of realized I could be waiting around a long time if I keep waiting on the traditional models. And so I had to kind of start my own thing all the time.
Yeah.
I was at a pattern. I was always like the first, the founder, or at the forefront. Now that I know that's my pattern, I'm good with it.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, I fought it. I just wanted to, why can't I get the big record deal? Why can't I? And so my big piece of advice, artist or not, is do not wait around to be discovered.
Yeah.
Discover yourself instead. There's so much work to be doing, Jen, to introduce ourselves to the fullness of our identities. I think American culture, in particular, puts a lot of emphasis very early on what are you going to do when you grow up?
Yeah.
You be. And so at 6 years old, we're like, I don't know, doctor, right?
Firefighter. Is that a teacher? Is that what I do?
And then you get locked in. If you're like, me, we have to start young. If we're going to be classical pianists, we got to go to all the right schools. And this is like at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And then what do? You come out of grad school, you're 24. You better do piano. You just did your whole life, right? And so then you go, well, I can't choose anything else because we've invested. No, the investment, what I want people to get, the things you were a part of, the things that you've honed and mastered, those things were actually investing in you. They became a part of the investment that you now offer to the world. So you're not cheating on yourself when you say, piano, I love you, but you are not always going to be at the forefront. You're not cheating on yourself if you say, well, I went to school for accounting, but I'm really feeling led to go over here. Go. Purpose is like, come on, we can go wherever we want to go together as long as you understand why you're going, who you're going to, and how you're going to go. I mean, and that doesn't mean details, right? Right. Let's plan A, type A. I get you. I feel you. I'm telling you, there's power in simply lifting up your foot in the direction you feel led to go and trusting that by the time you put it back down, you'll be on to something.
I love this because as a former educator,
I bet.
I loved talking to kids not about what did they want to do when they grew up. I think it also was because I was the music teacher. I could have a little bit of I didn't have to, even with kindergarten, like I just watched everybody because oftentimes people don't always know how to relate to kids. And that's a question to ask. And I get that. But I wish I would have learned this question earlier that I'm glad I learned early enough for my own children. Which is, what kind of problems do you like to solve?
Oh, that's good.
When people bring you problems, what kind of problems do you like to solve? And, my oldest is a senior. He's about to graduate from the University of Kansas. And he is like really wrestling, but I'm so glad that he's wrestling with that question. Not so much, should I go to law school? Although that is part of it, but like, what is the problem I like to solve? And our youngest is a freshman. She is undeclared, and people are like, how is she undeclared? And I'm like, because and it's okay. Very few people are like me to go to school, get a music ed degree, and then go teach music. That's not common.
Our path it's interestingly almost more defined, even though people think of it as loose and artistic.
Yeah,
it's very really defined.
It is very defined. And at the same time, I think about we've asked her that question a lot, and it's been so helpful for her. She's starting to discover, I love to solve problems between people. I like to organize stuff together, and I like to solve problems between people. So what kind of things do I need to do if I solve problems between people? Like that question has been so powerful in understanding purpose. It feels a little lighter than what's your purpose, because you don't want to ask the 6-year-old that. 6-year-old sometimes.
Yeah. I'm so excited now to ask my kids that. I ask them, similarly, because of what I teach, I know not to just say, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
My question has been, to my kids, I want them to take note of the things they may do differently than others. Or my son growing up was very sensitive. And, he got teased for a little while about being a crybaby, all those things. And I said, well, why do you think you tend to feel things more deeply than other people? Because I think we have to reframe our makeup from being a mistake because it's not like everyone else.
Yes.
And I always say that you're not the minority, you're the standout. So when you go into a room and you seem to be one of only, right? Or one of a few, and that doesn't have to be limited to ethnicity and gender. It could just be you think differently, you come from a different part of the nation. I like to ask myself, so what is it that I might bring to this table that's different than others? I remember my son said to me, well, I think I'm supposed to understand people, when other people don't understand them, and this is, of course, now the 16-year-old who, we're lucky if we get one word out. But I remember that he is still, even if he looks, like a deadpan sometimes, his face is, meh, I know that he feels. Because I remember that little boy, that helps me as a mom, not because I'm inquisitive. I want to go, but what are you feeling? Why are you feeling that? When did that happen? And which drives him and my husband, who's his twin. So I can check that part of me and just trust. I know he's feeling something. I didn't get the reaction that my dramatic self wanted, but I know he's feeling something.
Yeah. Well, there's so much in that. And even though, I mean, we're using these examples with our kids,
Mhm.
those are some of the same questions I ask clients when they're in transition.
That's
One
good.
of the other questions that I wish I could remember who told me this, because
Mhm.
it's not my original line,
Okay.
but it was, look back and what's the golden thread?
Mhm.
What's the thing that was always like so simple to you
That's
and
right.
everybody always kind of praised you for it, but it just always kept coming back around in your experiences.
Right.
And that helps us in the workplace because it helps us look beyond, well, I got trained to do this work. I got trained in advertising and marketing, or I got trained as a proofreader. I was
Mhm.
trained as a CPA. But what are the things that people praised you for? What seemed easy
Yeah,
and it just kept coming back to you?
that's good.
And that means you get to look at your sports experience, your other extracurricular experience, your book club, you're hanging out with your cousins, whatever.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's that golden thread
that's
that
it.
has come through this tapestry of my life that always keeps coming back.
That's a good way to think about it. I talk about it similarly in uh, my kind of writings around purpose, whereas it really is the thing that often comes second nature to you, and you take it for granted because you could do it in your sleep.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes you have to ask other people,
Oh,
like they are better that when I first left education, it was such a traumatic experience for multiple reasons. It was a toxic work environment and education is an identity job. I'm a
okay.
teacher, I am an educator. Like that was really challenging. And I just started asking people different things. And then when I finally like, oh, I didn't realize keynote speaking was a job. Like, oh, this is a thing. And everybody's like, duh. Like this is what you do.
Of
Like,
course. Yeah. Because it
exactly.
is also teaching, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was like, why didn't I ask people before? There's a wealth of wisdom around you. Your colleagues, if you ask them, if you ask your leader, if you ask your friends, they'll give you some ideas. They see you more than I think we probably think people see us, which
That's
is
it. I
slightly terrifying.
when I do that kind of work, purpose work with clients, and they have to go and have people say, "What do you see?" And the question we always says, "What happens when Jen Whitmer enters the equation? Like what breaks out?"
Mhm.
And they are always shocked. First of all, hear the same answers keep coming back at them. But I'll have people who might identify themselves talking about the tie between purpose and identity. They may say, well, I'm shy or I'm quiet. I had a lady who that's how she self-identified. But it was funny because the stuff that kept coming back to her from the people she loved and asked is they saw her as a rebel. They saw her as like this rabble rouser. And she was like, she felt that way sort of internally, but didn't know that's how people were seeing her. And it's like it freed her to officially be that.
Mhm.
Because that's the other thing. Because we're humans and we need to be able to put our hand on something. We'll say, "Oh, she's shy," which doesn't equal bold. No. So it's like when I work with people on speaker training,
Mhm.
they go, "Well, I'm not going to be like you. I'm not like, I'm not demonstrative. I don't have a loud voice." I'm like, "That has nothing to do with boldness." Boldness to me is it's a state of being, and
Yeah.
it's actually a choice. So you can be introverted, which people don't believe. I am more introverted than I am extroverted. Easily, easily. I'll go with ambivert just to help
No
you.
one is surprised that I'm an extrovert. No one's
No, I can I love my extroverts, but at the end of the day, this time of year, I gave my onesie, and my husband and we're homebodies, right? I love when people have a certain belief of where even their limitations are in terms of personality. Purpose begins to pull out parts of you that you might have reserved for only for home, right?
Yes.
Or only for church or only for work. I didn't, when I'm ministering, there's a lot of humor involved. But I want to take you really high and disarm you so I can really kind of deliver some gut punches, right? And so, but I have
We'll
a
give away all of our speaker secrets.
You're right. You're right. You're right. But I love emotional roller coasters, and I do it in music. The pieces I was attracted to as a kid have that kind of a landscape. My speaking presentations have that. So you'll see, like you said, the golden thread. I call it a through thread that's always been there. Rhythm is one for me.
Mhm.
It affects how I speak, how I play. And when I work with people, I'm helping them uncover their kind of unique rhythm, right? Marching to their own beat. So you'll see, I would say, God is not a God of waste.
Yeah.
So people sometimes you talk about transition, they secretly feel like they're cheating on the thing they went to school for, right? And I always say, no, that it's not going anywhere.
Mm-mm.
It's actually it's going to come with you in some way, shape, or form. You're just now teaching with a microphone in your hand and you're on a stage in front of thousands of people.
Really? Totally. So for a while there, we have 4 kids and dinner, lots of activity, that kind of stuff. And then we were just everywhere. The boys had graduated, so it's just the 4 of us. And so we decided to do some Blue Apron meals, which are those meals that they send to you, and I don't have to think about it. I love to cook. I'm actually a very good cook. My youngest daughter likes to cook too, but we're just so busy that the thought of everything was just too much decision fatigue. So we got this. And so it was kind of like a card pass out, deal out, who's making dinner, pick your card, everybody can cook, so especially when everybody's home for summer.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Blue Apron loves is a good old fond, which is like when you cook meat in it and you take the meat out, but you leave all the brown crap in the bottom of the pan. And that's what I think some of those experiences are in our life. It's easy to think, I'm just going to scrape this out and toss it into the trash. But that stuff, that is the goodness of a sauce deep and through that makes a sauce feel complicated and rich and has texture and all the things that we want to eat, that kind of goodness. Just the meat's out of the pan. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I love that part. And we used to joke, oh, it's Blue Apron. We're going to have a fun tonight. But that idea of cheating on what our past experiences is so real. Like I quote unquote, I wasted my grad school because I did accounting and now I'm doing marketing and graphic design, or I'm working in a theater or whatever switch. I work in IT now, like it's not a waste. It's a part of the complexity of you bring
and the uniqueness
that makes you stand out. And I think sometimes that's where we get afraid. Like, am I allowed to stand out? Do I get to do this?
Right. And you do. Oh my gosh, you get to. In fact, I call it a mandate. Once like those things, once you learn it, you can't go back and say you didn't know. So when you uncover these things that bring you joy, that make you feel really fulfilled, but you're like, but it has nothing to do with what I do for a living. Right. We need to investigate those things because they may simply serve as your release, your escape. But a lot of times they get to come with you. I joke with audiences that, I've been in workplaces where, somebody out there is hilarious, but their coworkers don't even know they know how to smile because for some reason they thought I can't bring this part, right? Or this irreverence or, whatever to work with me. And often the very spaces we're in, because they're full of complex people, we need to know that we're not the only complex person.
Yes.
Right. So then we begin to kind of let our guards down. I think in these last few years, you've probably noticed this even more so in the spaces where you speak. Organizations are finally ready to have these conversations. They're finally ready to take a more holistic look at their people, not to see them as the people who help them achieve the bottom line.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's almost like the whole kind of DEI era where you couldn't really tell if people were doing it because they really believed in it or they felt like they had to. And I think the same is true with culture building right now. I don't know yet how bought in organizations are, or if they've figured out if we don't fix this stuff, it's going to hurt the bottom line, right?
That's the part that I keep trying to tell them.
So, and that's what it was with DEI for a long time. We're like, no, we promise diversity actually helps.
Yep.
And so now we see with some of that stuff being, yanked back, that maybe the motives weren't all pure. And maybe it's the same now as people are digging into culture and purpose and serving their people. But once you uncover it, it can't be yanked back from you.
From you.
Not from you personally. When you really understand how to fuel yourself, and how uniquely gifted you are to deliver on the very specific outbreak effect that you have, no rollback of any program can take that away from you. So I don't want you all to hear us solopreneurs, entrepreneurs out here, riffing on our life that may seem less complicated by people, because it's not, because we have to build our own teams, right? But I want your listeners to know that they have purpose right where they are.
Yeah.
They get to unleash that. They get to decompartmentalize themselves. And I dare them to trust in advance that the fullest version of themselves is going to not only bless them in the workplace, but it's going to have a powerful effect on others around them.
Absolutely. It's so, I think we talked about it in the last episode, that when you are living in the fullness of who you are, it's easier, you're more productive, you're more creative. And that brings joy. Connecting to purpose is part of what joy is.
Right.
And we sometimes think we don't deserve joy. And joy is very vulnerable, because I'm demonstrating to you, here's the thing that I'm actually really great at and care about. But when we actually do the work and find purpose and really connect to the larger thing that we want to do, and we find that joy, it is the contagion effect.
Yeah.
Like, because you start to say, I want to be around that person. I want to work on that person's team. And so, and then your team starts to find about themselves if you're willing to share your work.
That's right.
And one of the things I said this morning was like, self-awareness without self-disclosure just creates self-centeredness. And that is not what we want.
Oh, that's an episode. That's an episode.
I want the self-awareness, but I need to self-disclose. Like, this is what's happening inside of me. Because if I'm just navel gazing, it's totally unhelpful. But when I model that to other people, they're like, oh, there's room for this. There's room for my purpose being different from your purpose, because you're showing me how we work together, and we together can do more work. Yeah. We are more productive. We are more creative. We are more innovative. We solve bigger problems. And that's what we're doing. Like, that's what the work is. So I just think that joy just starts to build a train if we're willing to take those steps into that purpose and connecting it to what we do every single day.
Oh, wow. I'm telling you, that's a whole episode and t-shirt. I want the hat. I want the notebook. Again, as I'm listening to you, Jen, first of all, just thank you again for having me. It's so.
Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled that you're here. As we start to wrap up, I want people to keep finding you. Like, you have to connect with Jade.
Please do. I would love to be connected. I love to play around on Instagram, taking a little break right now, but I'm at official Jade Simmons. And of course, my website, jadesimmons.com.
Yeah. All of your things are right here in this nice little QR code if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll put all of the show notes together. I would love for you to give us a little Jade, go forth and do. Give us like a little challenge, a thing to just encourage us as we close this out.
Yeah. Whenever you're watching this, I want to encourage you that whenever you want, you can decide to start a new year. I celebrate multiple New Years every year. And I think there's something powerful in the reset. But don't only press the reset button because of regret or because you want to do over. I would love for you to consider, as you're just kind of gazing into the future over the next couple of weeks, getting ready for 2025, or, already stomping out 2025. I would love for you to press a reset that says, this season, I get to be more of me than I was last season. I get to bring more of myself. I would love you to bring all of yourself to every single table, every single time. And the vulnerability that Jen was talking about, it's real. So what you're going to have to trust in advance is that there is going to be reward in that. A little risk too, but definitely reward. And I want nothing more than for you to experience the validation that comes with knowing you get to be all of who you are.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again, Jade. You are a delight as always. I'm so grateful. So grateful for you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.
So let me put my coach hat on for just a moment. Don't just leave this here. Take a moment. What did you learn? What's your next tiny action step? Share this episode with someone and tell them what you're going to do. Check the show notes for all the links and connect with us on LinkedIn and all the other socials, or just, drop me an email at Jen with 2 N's at jenwhitmer.com. We want to keep this conversation going with you. I know your earballs have a lot coming at them, so thank you for listening to the Joyosity podcast and being a part of our community. Please take a moment to rate and subscribe. It helps more people join us in the movement to create positive culture with complex people. So work is a joy, people are whole, and organizations flourish. Can't wait for you to join us next week.